and me have to mention. Tell me what to me granny pension.
How long she a work a post office and the pension?
Happy Hump Day! Happy Wednesday! Welcome to Community Voices, where like-minded people come together to share common goals and interests. I am your girl, MoMo Love, and over there is DJ Fiyabone. We are back together again. How are you, DJ Fiyabone?
I'm good.
Are you here? Are you here? Are you here?
I'm here. What up, community?
I am so happy, community, that we are all here together. I hope you have downloaded the free Ablazin Radio Pro app. It is free, and it is for me. It is for iPhone and Android users. That means it's compatible for each and every single one of you, and you can take us every single place you go. Also, listen live on the website, www.ablazinradio.com. It is where entertainment lives, and I hope you guys give us a call tonight at 240-949-2289. Bones, how have you been holding up in this pandemic?
I'm keeping the same.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You've been doing all the right things?
Yeah. I'm on the front line saving the world, man.
All right, we appreciate that. Oh, you get up and go to work? Good for you. We appreciate that. Well, I want to remind everybody, because it is our duty too. Make sure you do the 5 things, the top 5 things. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Often. Okay? Wash your hands often. As well as cough or sneeze into your elbow. All right? If you ever think about it, if you sneeze, all that phlegm and spit, comes all out your mouth. So, put it right there in the crook of your elbow, and that will save a lot of lives. Listen, try not to touch your face. I have a bad habit of that, Bones. I have a very bad habit of touching my face. I know everything is there, but I just want to touch my face. So be careful about doing those things. Also, stay more than 3 to 6 feet apart. I made sure I tested it when we came in. We were 3 to 6 feet apart. And listen, if you are feeling sick, stay home. It is one of the most important things that you can do. I also say, wash your surfaces often. Especially if you go out and you come back in, you're bringing bags in, you're putting bags on your counter, you might sit your coat down or whatever the case may be. Wipe your counters up. I think that's another way that you can kind of help in fighting this pandemic.
Don't fight the water.
Don't fight the water. The water is good for you. And I also say wear gloves. There has been some reports to say not wear gloves. I say if you're going to go out, I think you should wear gloves. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, because you're touching other surfaces. And we've been seeing these videos of people licking surfaces. And at first they were saying, I think it is still rings true that it kind of stays on the metal surfaces. So make sure you wipe the surfaces and wash your hands, wear gloves. Do whatever it is that you can do for your part in order to control this pandemic. It is serious. It is real. And as they say, things are going to get worse before they get better. And I think on all levels, on an economic level, on a relationship level, on a patience level. And I think if we just band together and do everything that we possibly can to take this time to do some things that you haven't done before, learn a new craft or fix some things, do some early spring cleaning. There's so many things that can be done. I saw a video earlier today. There are some Jamaicans that live in Wuhan, China, where the epidemic started, and they were giving just family tips on how they're, banding together and playing games and praying together. And I'm sure that they're taking their time to have their own sanity in their own spaces together. So whatever it is that you have to do, community, make sure you do that, as well as check on your single friends. Okay, your single, non-having kid friends. They need you during these times. So check on them, as well as the elderly. They say that if your elders are in a nursing home or assisted living or anything like that, to give them a call. Now, I know some of my community is not having that because they're going to go see their grandma. But please make sure that you are safe and respect what the authorities are saying, as well as each other. Check on each other, period. We need each other, and so check on each other. And so keep it locked right here to Ablazin Radio, especially Community Voices, which you can hear us every Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Here we're gonna have a different little controversial topic tonight. We're gonna talk about colorism. Light versus dark. It doesn't really still exist. And we're gonna talk with Shannon Anderson. She wants to help us change the trajectory on our thinking right here on Community Voices on Ablazin Radio. It is where entertainment lives. Hey, welcome back. It is Community Voices with MoMo Love alongside DJ Fiyabone, and I thank you so much, Bones, for all of that. It feels like, I don't like when we're not together. It feels like a long time. You know what I mean? So I'm so glad to see you back and all is well with you and the family.
Missed you last week.
I
missed
know.
the community last week.
Yeah, they missed you too. I tried to hold it down doing my DJing, but we made it do what it do. We made it do what it do. It's nothing like 592 sound. I want to remind you guys to download the free Ablazin Radio Pro app. It's for iPhone and Android users, and you can take us any and every single place that you go, as well as listen to us live on the website, www.ablazinradio.com. It's going to be an amazing conversation tonight. So if you would like to, please call the number right here below, 240-949-2289. That's 240-949-2289. Guys, I just want to remind you, do the 5 to remind you about the COVID-19. We're not going to hammer in all of the details because I know that you've been CNN and C-SPAN and MSNBC and Black Atlanta Star and getting your information wherever you deem as a credible source. Please also include the CDC as well as the World Health Organization because they are the premier leader of guidelines that we should be following. One is washing our hands as often as possible. Every time you go out, they have not said we cannot go out, but limit yourself going out. Self-quarantine with your family. There's so many things that we could be doing right now. All of you that's working on your vision boards, that wanted to always fix something, wanted to repair something, wanted to build something, wanted to learn something, wanted to read that book. This is the time to do it, to have some self-reflection, to continue your daily affirmations. This is the time to do those things, as well as making sure that you cough or sneeze into your elbow. You can save a lot of germation being put out into the air. All right. So make sure you do that as often as you possibly can. If you just so happen to cough or sneeze into your hands, immediately wash them or use hand sanitizer and wash your hands as soon as possible. Okay. Remember, do the happy birthday song, count to 20, count to 40. Wash your hands twice, and you can use any kind of soap, a bacterial soap, Dove soap, Caress, whatever is good, feels good to you, as long as the water is hot and you lather it up real good. Try not to touch your face. I say this to myself constantly because I am a face toucher, so I try not to do it as often as possible. All right, especially right now during this time. Stay 3 to 6 feet away from each other. All right, that's called social distancing. It bothers me because I'm a hugger, you know what I mean? But I have to respect what the authorities are saying and do so I can protect myself and my family, as well as my loved ones, my friends that I come in contact with. So also, if you're feeling sick, stay home. Stay away from people. And feeling sick outside the normal, if you're coughing more than normal, if you're sneezing more than normal, because remember, we're getting ready to get into the cold and flu season, or the hay fever season. So whatever it is that you have to do to keep yourself safe, your family safe, make sure you do that, community, because I want to see you again. We got an update. I was letting you guys know about visiting the elderly, as well as your single friends, checking on people. The authorities are saying don't visit the elderly. All right, you can't do that right now. I know it's a hard time for those of us melanated people because we want to see our grandparents and our great grandparents and make sure that they're okay. But right now we have to heed what they are saying. Call, check on them. They will give you the updates. All right, but don't just go up there and possibly infect your loved ones. We definitely don't want to do that. So as promised tonight, Let me tell you, we have a great conversation that's getting ready to happen. All right. And I want you guys to keep it locked. Make sure you download the app. Keep it locked right here. We are going to speak with none other than author. She is a mom. She is a researcher, social researcher of justice and all things melanated people, if you will. I want to welcome Miss Shannon Anderson to Community Voices. Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for agreeing to come out tonight and talk about this serious topic in our community.
Of course. It's a needed conversation.
Yeah. So how did you get interested in colorism, if you will?
Well, I think mostly from my upbringing, I've been aware of it as a child. Through my family upbringing, being raised by a very fair-skinned mother, and my two brothers are fair-skinned, and I was always the brown one. And it wasn't really my family that made a big deal. It was everybody else, always making a comment about it. Do you have the same dad? Or, there are different things, always making a point. However, over the years, I've, heard of a lot of people and children still really in pain from some of the treatment or some of the biases that come from lack of being treated well because of skin color. And so I decided to, I'm actually working on my doctorate, and I was really trying to find a topic in education that was near and dear to my heart. And I always say you find something that you don't get bored about talking about. And this is what it was. And I was a teacher for years. I've been a principal, assistant principal, director. And so it was one thing that's always come up from comments about students to each other, around peer groups. And so...
so what exactly is colorism?
So colorism is basically thinking that lighter skin is a privilege over darker skin. Okay. Yeah. So it is basically light skin being more of a privilege over dark skin and all the biases that might come with it. Mm-hmm. So, and the preferential treatment or the treatment of dark skin people being not as privileged. And so it came about that there's different layers of colorism.
Yeah, so let me stick it right there because that's heavy, right? Mm-hmm. Because I don't think that people think that there is still an issue of colorism. Mm-hmm. And I think, in order to get to the root of any problem, you have to go down to the bottom. You got to find out some stuff. You got to uncover some stuff. Mm-hmm. And we don't like to talk about it because we have come so far. Mm-hmm. But do you believe or have the thought that the Willie Lynch or slavery has a part in that? Do you believe that there was actually a field and house, there was a separation of light and dark? And
absolutely. And it was intentional, I believe. So even before then, there was a hierarchy based on skin color. So if you think about Egyptians and who worked outside, and naturally, if you work outside, if you were the people, the workers, you were darker, and then you had the people running everything, basically. And so it was a class thing. So it was more so classism, in ancient times.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, classism, and classism is still in effect today as well.
Definitely.
So classism and colorism kind of go hand in hand.
It can. It can. However, classism is more just about that socioeconomics.
Okay. The more well-to-do.
Exactly.
Money.
It's about money, basically. And so colorism is about skin color. It's about phenotypes, your features. And it's the thought that anything closer to European standards of beauty is better. So basically,
your who standard?
European.
Okay.
European standards of beauty.
Okay.
Yes. So that is the thought. And so when we talk about slavery time, when it was, you know, the offspring of the slave masters were able to go in the house and work, and then basically pitting them against their family members that were still outside, only because there were more, you know, you worked inside, less labor, right? And they were given more privileges. So a lot of them were taught how to read and write. During the antebellum period, they were allowed to have, some had land, some own their own slaves, you know. Some were able to be entrepreneurs. They were able to go to school. And so that built an even bigger divide between what we call the mixed race and our brothers and sisters who were never mixed.
So then the infiltration starts and it permeates through families because now it's ingrained in us that a fairer skin receives better treatment than a darker skin, which basically we're all black when you talk about pigmentation.
Right.
And if we can go right there for a second, pigmentation is basically the color, how much melanin is actually in your skin. So, of course, if you are of the darker color, you have more pigmentation if you're in the lighter hue.
Exactly.
Of course, right?
Exactly.
So this is now being integrated and infiltrated into us almost as learned behavior.
Ingrained.
Like light is right, you know, get back if you're black, if you will.
Brown,
so
stick
now,
around.
if you're brown, stick around. So now it's a family generational thing.
Exactly, and it's endemic. So, which means it's so built into our psyche and our belief system that it's hard to pull out. So I have like 7 what I call our sphere, and there's 7 influences, and I call historical influence, our educational influence, our societal influence, our economic influence, family, media, and peer, and all those kind of get into how we internalize things.
Yeah.
So you take a little child that is being impacted by all those influences, growing up, seeing things in the media, how we're portrayed in media, the difference. And when I say that, I'm saying like the love interest is usually who?
Yeah, a fair skin.
Okay.
But let's talk about family for a second, because the generational effects we see, right? Little girls and boys are, like you said, you grew up with 2 fair-skinned brothers, and so even within your house or outside of your house, you hear these things. Oh, well, what you doing here? Why you so light? Why you so dark? What color are you? Why don't you look like us? What does that begin to do? Because even though when you go to school as a young child, you hear those mean girls.
Right.
You hear those boys saying different things. You know, when you take pictures, man, you got to smile so we can make sure you there.
Yeah, stuff like that. And that gets perpetuated sometimes in homes and out of homes. Now, I would say in my case, I didn't hear a lot of that inside the house.
Okay.
It was a lot of people around us that would always bring it up.
Okay.
Always make a point to bring up the difference, you
That
know,
you were-
and made it a big deal, you know, and I'm like, wow, we don't really talk about it inside the house. So why are you so concerned about it, you know? And so, but I was raised in Southern Virginia, Hampton, Virginia. I was military brat, so we traveled around a lot.
Okay.
So, but that's where I got most of it from is in, you know, when I lived in Virginia. And so, but yes, it can be, I mean, I have friends that talk about grandma saying, oh, she, you know, keep that girl out the sun, that kind of thing, or, you know, or stay under the tree, you know, and how they may have had more, catered to the lighter skinned grandchild. And so I hear stories about to this day of how they were treated, you know, and I mean, and it's not just, I mean, there's also colorism the other way too, you know, some biases that we kind of perpetuate of like especially for light skinned men, they're saying that they're soft and stuff like that. So that comes up a lot.
And you would expect grandmothers and grandparents, especially of a certain age, to speak of, oh, that little light-skinned cute baby over there. You know, you would expect that because they are not that far removed from, you know, what our ancestors went through in slavery. So the rhetoric still goes on, like you say, it's ingrained, and it takes a while to get out because it seems like it never ends. Like you say, when you start going to school and how the children start to treat one another. And I want to get into that. If you are just joining Community Voices with MoMo Love alongside DJ Fiyabone, we are speaking with Shannon Anderson. She is here to help us change our trajectory on colorism. She is a critical race and social justice researcher, author, and educator. Getting into when kids are in school. You know, can you see the differences right away? Or do kids just come and play with each other? They don't really. When do you start seeing the differences in the treatment of color?
So you may not see it right away. It's, you know, kids don't always separate themselves because of that.
Okay.
But children start internalizing it very early on. And then, you know, like we've seen the doll test, right?
Yeah.
We've all seen that doll test where, you know, even little black kids choose the white doll over the black doll, and they've done it with
the little test where the white kids and the black kids, and they get a doll, a black one and a white one, and they always, whether they're white or black, they tend to go for the white doll because that one is prettier. And then the words underneath the cards, ugly or bad, is always under the dark.
Exactly. And so with the standard of beauty also are all these other attributes that we put to skin color, right? So it is people who and I'm going to talk about more so white. Okay So white, people tend to say that they're smarter, right? That they're friendlier, that they are hard workers, and all those positive attributes that come to a Caucasian person, right? And then you have a black person, and all it's savage, you know, even though we kind of flip that to, you know, be positive, but, you know, a threat, right? A threat, not intelligent, lazy, all those negative attributes, right? And so let's go into colorism now. The closer a person is to that, those attributes kind of to the European standard, those attributes tend to go
so
with
when a
that.
person's behavior coincides or is synonymous with the adjective, it just perpetuates the thought.
It can, yes.
Well as so it sounds as if like they've heard these negative words, we've heard these negative words, and so we act accordingly.
So that's called stereotype threat. And so stereotype threat is when we start perpetuating, because you know, they think it anyway, so I might as well be it, you know. And it's not that it's conscious. It's a subconscious kind of thing. Yeah. And so that's called, and it happens to a lot of
they think this about us, so we might as well act like this anyway.
And I don't think it's a conscious thing that I'm going to act this way. It is, they internalize the behavior to the look or something like that. But there is research that shows that in school settings, that when there is the same infraction from a lighter skinned child to a dark skinned child, the lighter skinned child gets a less, less of a
How can
a
those studies be determined, or is this mothers just feeling that way? How are these studies determined?
So this research has been done over the years and by different people, and they look at who's being suspended and expelled, and they compare it. And they create the data from that. And so the same thing, so they'll look at complexion. Now, I will say complexion can be very subjective to some. So, and there is a scale they use, a skin color kind of scale that they kind of use, and it kind of shows where you stop being like light to brown to dark. Okay.
Who uses this?
Some of the researchers do. Yeah, some of the researchers do. So what they do is they look and see, okay, for the same infraction, what did the darker skinned child get, and what did the lighter skinned child? And in most cases, the lighter skinned child got a lighter consequence. So
interesting.
Yes. So their suspension was lighter, or their expulsion was, expulsion is 365 years regardless. Also, as in your policing, if we're thought of as a threat because our features are further away from the European standards, the policing, like we thought of as a threat, right? So the same thing goes for what the research has found in sentences. The same thing applies where if you're sitting in front of a jury and you have more of a friendly looking, and I don't know if y'all anybody
quote
can say
unquote,
I'm doing a quote, a friendlier looking face, your sentence is going to be less. But if you have more of a threat looking, if you look more like a threat or what people perceive as a threat, you can get a higher sentence.
So the bias is if you're dark and mean looking, you're automatically bad.
Yes, but dark and with more of a Negroidian features and what they consider more Afrocentric look.
These are researchers.
Those researchers are saying that because
studies.
they studied the data and they've looked at features of different people. So yes,
and different statistics throughout the country that says this is where the bias comes from,
right,
as well as learned behavior. It's a lot into it because what really hurts me, I think, is that it's not. It is a great deal about what other people think because we don't want them to think certain ways about us, which limits our capabilities, right? Because as we were saying in education, there are some teachers that are biased based on how they were brought up. Most and, definitely. We don't have a lot of African American teachers that are teaching our children. That's going to be another show. Yep. But we know that there are some teachers who have biases against some of our children. I really just want to talk more about how we feel about ourselves and our children, because it is true that there are some children, some parents who behave a certain way, which kind of infects their children to behave a certain way that may not even have anything to do with the color of their skin. It's just their bad behavior. However, there is this bias that this little boy who happens to be dark skinned is acting up. So him and people like little kids like him that look like him are going to be a problem. How do we eradicate that?
So I think it really is instilling the love in our children from early on about that they are beautiful, no matter what type of features they have.
Validating our children.
Validating them on an ongoing basis, overdoing it. I mean, of course, we want to make sure they believe us and never,
just don't be saying stuff.
Right, exactly. But their kinky hair is beautiful. Their full lips, their, nose, everything is, and really instilling that pride, because they're going to have enough issues when they walk outside that door, right? And so people are going to judge them regardless, about something. Yeah. So your house has to be a safe haven where you're building up that pride in self when they're young. Yeah. And so when they walk outside that door, that nothing anybody else says is they're gonna take in, and they're not going to internalize it, because we have instilled such pride in our children and belief that they are the one, and nobody can take that away, no matter how they look, and they're not comparing themselves because they see it on the media. They're going to see it, and a lot of things that we see every day, those implicit biases, those things, filtering into the psyche. But they have to find a way to, if they start thinking that way, to change that thought. And we have to start, when we start thinking that way about certain things, to check it. It's called mental models. Check our mental models. Checking about what you are thinking and why you're thinking that way. I had a conversation with my line sister this morning. What's up, Winnie Cherry? And she and we would talk about that. Sometimes these biases do seep in, and we have to turn it around.
I mean, we all have them. I think we all have them.
And it could be, when I posted something on social media, and there was a group that, and I'm not going to even give them, there's a group that went in on me saying light skin don't have privilege, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, hold up, I'm not trying to do a dark skin versus light skin. I'm just trying to educate all of us in the community about it, so there's not this separation.
But do you think that there has to be a discussion about light skin versus dark skin? Because I think both sides feel the pain.
That's what that's the point I was trying to make.
And it's so funny because when we were in the lobby, before the show, we're all having a conversation, and we're talking about what the topic of the show is tonight, and somebody says, "Oh, but you know those light-skinned women are, you know, they are killers, right?" And so it's like,
Trouble.
huh?
They're trouble.
Trouble. They're trouble. Yeah, the light-skinned women are trouble. And so I'm thinking, see, there it is right there. Not mean-spirited, you know, to some degree truth, I guess, for that
them.
particular
Exactly,
person.
yes.
But I think I agree with you. I think we need to remove that light dark label, because some of us women can just be trouble, period, right?
Exactly. No matter what hue you are.
Dark-skinned women are trouble too.
No matter what hue you are, just what you get, right?
A woman, period.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's another story.
Right.
That's another subject.
Exactly.
But if you are just joining Community Voices with MoMo Love alongside DJ Fiyabone, we are speaking here with author, educator, and critical race and social justice researcher, Miss Shannon Anderson. We are trying to change the trajectory of colorism and how we think about one another. I just want to go into society beliefs. You know, again, we start as babies. Is that me? We start as babies, you know, kind of having this ingrained learned behavior that we don't even realize that's there, right? And we get into middle school, we get into high school, and we have these biases, like all the cute girls are on the cheerleading team, and all the handsome guys are jocks or whatever like that. But then what we're all going round and round with these thoughts and beliefs. How do we build relationships with these biases that we may have for one another?
You know, I think in social circles, people hang because of those things. Like, oh, I'm going to hang with the cute girls because I think I'm cute. That kind of thing, or vice versa, or whatever. Or I'm going to hang with a different group because they look more like me. And when I worked in high school not too long ago, I did hear some things like that amongst the girls. And I even had like one girl say, why are you dating him? He's too black, that kind of thing. And you know, and I had to talk to the girl, like, you date who you want to date. You don't listen to what the other girls say. You know, things like that. And so, you know,
so it is still going on today. Oh my
gosh, yes, it is. It's still going on. And you know, you think about it. A lot of times, you know, when a mother has a little baby, what's the first thing they do? Look at the fingertips to see.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if that's the first thing. They might count the hands.
It is one of the things. If you're going to be honest, it is one of the things that you look at their fingernail beds and their ears to see. Oh, they're going to be a cute little chocolate baby. Oh, they're going to be a little chocolate baby.
Oh, they're yelling like their mama.
I got something to add about the high school thing.
What?
I also think it's like a maturity and mental thing, because at one point for me, and this was probably high school and middle school, I would date light-skinned girls, but as I got older, the darker you are, the more attracted I became to you, and the light-skinned thing just kind of, it was like a phase to me.
It was a fad.
So then this is how you get a chance to get some of this socialness, right? My question to you, Bones, though, is was your grandmother of the fairer skin, or did you just think that light was better?
My grandparents looked like me. I think it was a mental thing, and it was just like
a mental thing.
Yeah.
Wait, let's unpack that.
It was a mental thing.
Why?
And at one point, it was more like, you know, the lighter they are, the more attractive they are.
Okay, there we go. See?
So it was all about mental. But me personally, after a while, it was like outside of dark-skinned women, I think the only girlfriend I had that wasn't dark-skinned, or I actually be like, yo, I would marry you, she was Korean. So I think it's about a mental thing. It's because the older I got, it was like, you know what, the skin thing kind of go out a window. You know, it's more about maturity and